Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on this webinar all about how organisations can be more inclusive in their approach to hiring and developing managers. My name's Becky Norman, I'm the editor of L&D publication Training Zone, and this session is brought to you by both the Open University and Training Zone. We've got three brilliant speakers joining us today who are going to be sharing their real-world stories, examples and practical insights all about inclusivity in management development. So we have award-winning industry analyst Laura Overton joining us, and she'll be talking through some of the key highlights from a report she's been busy writing for us all about management readiness in the new era of work. We don't have a link for that at the moment. It's in the final stages of being developed, but we will send that out to you as soon as it's ready, just as an FYI. We also have with us today Jacky Hinton, who is Director of Apprenticeships at the Open University, and Gifford, who's Apprentice Lead at Lincolnshire Community Health Services NHS Trust. Both have tons of experience in the management domain, and they'll be sharing their insights with you as well on this topic. Just before we get into the main event though, I'm going to quickly run through a few of the key features on the webinar dashboard we're using today. So we've got a group chat available. If it's not up on your screen already, just click on the blue speech bubble icon and you'll find it there. Please do say hello, tell us where you're listening in from today. And we will be putting some questions to you during the session. So please do get involved in the discussion. And also in the last 15 minutes or so of the webinar, we'll have a panel discussion. So if you have a question for any of our speakers, just pop it in the group chat. And if we don't pick it up throughout the session, we'll get to it at the end if we've got time. We've also got a useful links and resources widget. If you want to do any further reading, or I think Jacky will mention something in her presentation for you to open up and look at during her bit. Please do click on the blue speech bubble, sorry, not the blue speech bubble, the blue paperclip icon, and you will find those links in there. That's just about everything from me. So I am now going to hand over to Laura to kick things off.
Becky, thank you so much. And it's great to see that everyone's already getting involved in the group chat, saying hello to everyone from around the UK at the moment, I think. So fantastic to get to know you. We would love to know what your thoughts are about this topic. When the three of us have got together to discuss what does inclusion in management development really look like, we had so many questions and thoughts and ideas that we would love to know your views in the chat room right now. You know, what questions have you brought to this session with us today? Whilst you're thinking about that for a moment, you know, what are the things that kind of inspire you about this topic? You know, what kind of questions do you have that you'd like to get answered by investing an hour of your time into this topic right now? Certainly, Becky mentioned, whilst you're thinking about that, you know, I've been working with the amazing people at the OU and doing loads of interviews for this new paper. And I have to say, the more I find out, the more I want to know. So I'm really excited today about being part of this panel and also to finding out from you as well as the participants, you know, share in the group chat ideas that you've kind of come across as we go through this process. So, you know, it would just be great for you to maybe just share some of your thoughts now in the group chat. If you've not found the button, if you move the slider to the bottom of your screen, you'll find the group chat in the black line at the bottom. Sometimes it's a little bit hidden when you're looking at the main screen in the middle of the area. So some of the thoughts that you might have today, and just like to know where you're coming from, is about how do we get the right people into our programs? Is that a challenge for you right now? Is that a question that you have? It would be great to get your perspective on that. Is it about the timing? How do we get the right people in place at the right time, and also with the right skills? Do you have a question? And we've got some great people here who've got incredible insight about how we might use technology to improve inclusivity in our management development programs, or do you have a view on that? And potentially, do you have a question around how do we kind of design so that actually the whole experience is inclusive? So, Tony, really appreciate your thoughts there about the psychological safety versus an psychologically safe environment versus an inclusive environment. That's a really a cool question. Hopefully we'll be able to touch on that today. Dominic, thank you about your thoughts as well about the challenge. Is the challenge being selective? Are we recruiting the person as opposed to the skill? Really powerful thoughts there, Dominic, because I think all of us have to be challenged through the questions that we're asking. Is it just about developing good skills, or do we have to actually look holistically at the whole process? So really appreciate that thought there as well. James, inclusive leadership practice as well. That's a really powerful thought. And Becky, maybe some of these that we can kind of link back to as we go forward. Peter, thank you as well. Interesting how we move from embedding best practice. I agree with this. Is so broad, Peter. The issues and the things that we're going to be discussing today. It's not like the engineering of a bridge, where we follow rules. We are working in a complex environment, on what is effective practice for our environment rather than best practice that needs to be included by everyone. So thank you, Peter. Really appreciate your views on that and keeping us grounded about looking out for ideas in this session today that work for us in our own environment. So thank you that you've shown us the group chat's working. We really appreciate that. And please add your comments, your questions as we go through in this process there. Lucy, just thank you. Last one I'm going to comment on there about you're asking how do we move away from presenting development a way that makes underrepresented group feel that they're lacking in something. Oh, Lucy, thank you. You have set us up well. The thing we'd love to do first is to perhaps move to you, Jacky. And there's no pressure, Jacky. You don't have to answer all of these questions, but we really are grateful for the room to share with us where you're coming from, because we've got a number of different perspectives here today that we would love to show. And Jacky, we love your views. This is as a manager and also in the work that you do at the OU. I'm really excited to kind of hear what you have to say. So, Jacky, handing over to you now.
Hi, thanks, Laura, and hi to everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you today. I thought I might just start by just taking us back a bit and thinking about where we're at today. I'm sure you as managers will have experienced the last 18 months as I have with a large team and moving to sort of a completely virtual environment. And I just thought it was worth a little bit of reflection first on the sort of environment that is and how we came to that. For me, this pandemic has highlighted an existing skill shortage. When I started in management, which was probably too many years ago to reveal to you all today, I was really lucky. I worked for an organisation that saw management and the training of managers as a key priority. And I can remember being told you are being trained to manage rather than being trained to be a specialist in X, Y, and Z. And I think those skills and embedding those skills at a really early stage, and I was sort of 21 when I started my training as a manager, were really vital to me in terms of embedding management skills throughout my career. And as I've moved from organisation to organisation and from sector to sector, I've found that those skills, above all of the other skills that I've learned, have seen me, through those different times. I think what's happened in the last 18 months is we've suddenly been thrust into a world where we don't have the same social cues that we had before. And how do we operate without those social cues? I know for me, we were just having a discussion in the office today about this and about people coming back into work. What is it that we're missing? We miss those indicators that maybe things are right or wrong. We miss the energy levels that an office environment gives us. And in the resources section, I've posted up some details, and I can post up later sort of the research that this comes from. But the sorts of things that are harder when you're not managing with all these social cues, I've organised them into, your communication-related factors, your social dimensional factors, and your task-related factors. Things like building trust. Have you had new people come into your team over the last 18 months? I have. I've had about 4 new people, and they feel lost. They can't see and know the people. They can't picture the office environment. So, what does that build in people, and how do we keep our management being inclusive in those environments? And I think, overlaying all of this is this sort of perception of organisational fairness. How do you maintain that in this virtual environment? Because, in all likelihood, we will be operating in this world probably for some time to come, if not forever, as we move forward. Just the final slide before I hand back to Laura. I just wanted to just share this with you, because this really, of all the research all the research papers I've looked at around communication, particularly in the virtual world, this is the one that really has stuck with me, and I've always tried to work with. And this is about the heartbeat of communication, and it's about the predictability of communication, about having large events, whether they be virtual or in-person events, followed by very predictable interim events that give you a sense of predictability and reliability around communications. An opportunity, if you like, for people to raise the issues, the knotty problems that they're facing on a day-to-day basis, but which you might miss in this virtual environment. So hopefully that will give you some food for thought. I'm going to hand back to Laura now to run the next part of the session.
Jacky, before you hand back and come off mute, I'm just really interested in your views about how we as managers can actually use that heartbeat of communication in a more effective way. Do you think we're equipped to do that, or do you think that's one of the essential skills that we need to consider if we're looking at inclusivity as a whole?
Yeah, I think about heartbeat in a couple of ways. So one is something that I think everyone can do, which is to know when for your teams to know when you're going to communicate, know how you're going to communicate and the ways. But the other way that really struck me, and this was sort of early stages of the pandemic, as an apprenticeship provider, we work with lots and lots of different organisations, but one of our biggest customers is the NHS. And in the early stages, our staff were supporting people who themselves were dealing with horrific and difficult situations on a day-to-day basis. And I found that what was really critical in that heartbeat was sensing and working with that, and giving people the time and space to talk about how they were feeling about these conversations, some of which were extremely difficult. So I think that, to me, is a big step. It's that mixture of your sense of how people are operating, as well as having some clear set down times and ways in which you communicate that people know and can rely on in a virtual world. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it's just really helpful. And I think one of the key things that James has flagged here, that just asking people how they want to engage is so important now. But these are some of the new skills. I think Dominic's been talking about the fact that, we have to recruit maybe for the right attitude of getting the right people in place who are hungry to be able to do these things, who want to do these things, because then we can teach them how to do that more effectively. But actually, if somebody isn't in that place of wanting to be able to move forward with their communication, then we can't really train those skills in. So I think it's just really helpful to actually see this heartbeat of communication there. So again, thank you so much for your thoughts that are still coming through into the chat room as well. And thanks, Jacky, for kind of kicking us off with some thoughts here about, the fact that what we're talking about is managing and leading in an environment which is incredibly complicated. So it's one of the areas that we've been looking at as we've been developing this new white paper. And I'd like to just throw out a few ideas on how we, as perhaps learning professionals, as people professionals, can think about the way that we design the interventions that build up our managers, and can we actually start to model inclusion within the design of that process? Because some of the environment that Jacky's been talking about is a complex environment. It's no longer just complicated, where if we give the people the right skills, they can follow one after the other and come up with a solution to a problem. The environment that we're working in, the remote environment, the technology-driven change that we're seeing across industry, the way that that's impacting security of individuals in their own workplace, the choices that we have made, the routes that we've had in the past that have to be uprooted and redefined in our roles or in the roles of our team. So the environment of managing today is one of great complexity. It's incredibly nuanced, and a number of you have really been talking about some of the issues there. And Tony, the point you made earlier about psychological safety, when all of us are faced with this change, we don't know what is coming next in our role, in our personal safety, coming back to the workplace, staying remote. And as managers, our environment is to create an environment where people can be the best that they can be. And how do we do that? And Tony, you raise a really important question about creating a safe environment, but also creating an inclusive environment. How do we make sure that everyone in the organization potentially feels that they can belong, feels that they contribute into that environment? So I think there's quite a powerful overlap there. But however we look at this, it's a complex environment, and the managers that we have are going to be really critical. So one of the things that we've been looking at in this paper is, where do we get our management talent from? And I think typically most organizations know, 1969, the Peter Principle, we get great performing people who are great at complicated tasks, great at delivering incredible sales or managing great projects. And often those individuals have been recruited into management as their next career step, and they are back to square one. Now, are they the right people in place at the right time? I don't know. But we have got existing talent in the workforce. Are they equipped to actually deliver that complex management environment, that listening skills, those cue skills that Jacky was talking about? We've also got the hidden talent, and this is where, we're talking about those, as you mentioned in the in the chat room, about creating an environment where potentially our new managers are hidden. Maybe the women that are returning to work, the BAME environment where we haven't been able to have the opportunities to be able to progress. Maybe we've got incredible management talent within those groups. We need to create an environment by which that can be surfaced. And also, we also need to think about our future talent as well. We look at all of the skills that we need coming through and the graduate skills. Whilst the technical skills are very strong, the next number of skills that are kind of really flagged for the new recruits of success in any job are those complex cognitive skills that we are actually absolutely critical. So we need to think about how do we source our talent, and then how do we make sure that everybody gets an equal opportunity to be able to surface whether or not they're going to be good at these new types of skills that we need. And we talked already about complexity. We've talked about the fact that actually new managers now, they are not just needing a whole series of skills, how to have a difficult conversation or how to conduct a performance appraisal, but the skilled manager now is looking at a whole range of complex cognitive skills that are all interwoven with each other. The ability to communicate, Jacky's already mentioned, in this new world, this remote world, the ability to give clear direction, to be able to surface innovation, to create the opportunity for self-awareness for themselves, and also an honest and safe environment for other people, an opportunity to create a responsive environment. These are complex and complicated skills. Just to say to people, we need to make you self-directed in this complex environment isn't enough. I think we need to really be thinking about how do we design our learning interventions and ensure that they are available to everybody, because I think you're having this conversation in Tony, we appreciate that, and Dominic as well, about culture and strategy. And managers are at the heart of creating the culture, and to be able to have those skills in place are very complicated and complex skills that they need. So how do we think about the way that we're designing to build those skills in such a way that it provides equal opportunity for hidden talent to be able to connect and be involved as well? And really, I wanted to kind of run through some ideas, really practical ideas that we're covering in the report about how we can do that. I'd like to look at how we think about the way we design our management programs to tackle this complex issue, this nuanced issue, this issue of complex skills that we need to give to people. I'd like to tackle some ideas on how do we help to establish habits, because habits are the thing that change the culture that we've been talking about in the chat room. And how do we build into our design thinking of our programs the ability to build up confidence, not just about the psychological safety, but the confidence of those that didn't even believe and know that they could become part of that management culture. And I'd really like to draw on the book by Miriam Neelam and Paul Kirshner, which is an amazing book. It's heavy in terms of it's packed full of myth-busting ideas about how to design learning, but it's powerful in the way that it uses evidence to build skills which are complex, which is exactly what we're talking about right now, that nuanced, layered skills that we're going to need in our managers, in our future managers. And what's critical now, if we're thinking about inclusivity, is that it's not just about the way that we think about our elite, our high potential programs, the people who are on the fast track. But how do we make this opportunity available to everyone? Because we're all going to need these types of skills, whether we're in an official management role or not. So here's just a few practical things. If anything jumps out at you, mention it in the chat room. If you've got an example, please just share it, because we just love to be able to learn from that. So let's look about this issue around tackling complexity, tackling a nuanced world. Now, if we think about our existing managers, those that have been recruited, who hadn't got Jacky's experience of being trained in the nuance of manager from an early stage, when they hit the job, they're expert in a particular area, but they are novices in this area of nuance management with those skills. And so therefore they've got a psychological challenge to be able to get their heads around, to be able to prove themselves in this new role. Just providing them with a few resources of go ahead and do it, that is not going to work for people who are novice in a complex skill. What we need to be thinking about is the integrated tasks that they're involved with, rather than just giving them resources to go out and do their complicated and complex job. How do we think about helping them to think through whole tasks? Often our management training, Miriam Neelam and Paul Kirshner talk about, we often split things down into individual skills. Let's teach you how to delegate, let's teach you how to listen. But it's so difficult to transfer that back into the workplace. And if we want to create an inclusive environment, we've got to build skills in a way that builds confidence. And looking at how to practice on whole tasks, integrated tasks, building a range of different skills at the same time, I think is going to be so critical for us if we really want to build up confidence, again, for everyone we're involved with. The other thing that I don't think we see enough of, but is the whole idea of actually working with worked examples. When you've got a nuanced and complicated situation and a complex environment of new skills to do, you're just going straight into the flow of work may not be appropriate for those who are novice in this role, or those who don't think they could ever even apply for this role. What we need to do is build up confidence, build up skills, and the power of case studies, the power of worked examples, as we start to build that and scaffold it and structure it into our learning design, helps us to bring people with us as they get their heads around new ideas in a safe environment. So again, Tony, picking up psychological safety in that learning environment, creating the opportunity to feel safe and included, and that we're all on the same level playing field. And worked examples could really help us with that. And the other thing that the advice that Miriam and Paul give us is the fact that we need to give, if we're taking a new manager thinking about these complex skills on a journey, we need to give them the appropriate guidance at the right time. So if something is new and they're grappling with it and it's tough, how do we give them support and guidance that can then be transferred into the tough work environment that they're also facing? Again, Jacky, you said it so perfectly at the beginning, this remote work environment that we're all connected to, creates so many challenges for managers and for staff. So creating the appropriate guidance at the right time is certainly something that helps us navigate through complexity. And rather than feel that we've got to fake it till we make it, we're building courage within our learning programs. And these are three things that Miriam and Paul really suggest that we do. The other thing that we need to be thinking about as well is that, in this complex environment and complex skills that we need as managers, to be responsive and caring and honest and open and all of these things, and listening, those people skills that we need. It doesn't work when it's just a one-off and then we all revert. And again, loving the comments in the chat room about how we look at culture, because culture is really informed by the habits of its people. And, we need to really look at how we build ongoing habits. So I think, the conversation that you're having right now in that chat room about, being able to practice and to be able to know what it feels like, programs that are spaced in time that allow us to work on an integrated example and then go back, try it out, creating that safety. And, as you say, I think it's a great comment there, Hans, that you've talked about. How do we help people to start thinking about things. And so creating that spaced environment where people have the opportunity to take the guidance from their formal work environment and start to use it in their own work environment is important. The way that we support change also influences our habits. So, for example, if we're used to, our thinking habits are used to working through complicated challenges, often giving us a model, an idea, you know, sort of the new mental models about how things can happen can help us move using that model from where we're currently thinking into a new space. So supporting change by giving people new ways of new mental models, new ways of connecting those models to tackle change. But it isn't just about our mental models, but it's also about the way that we support people back in the workplace to think through complex situations and environments. So supporting change through our models, through our guidance, through our on-the-job support is critical. But I think just blasting people with a whole heap of online resources that may help them isn't going to help establish new habits that really, really impact. And rewarding success is so critical as well. So we've got to really start to be thinking about that. Maybe the use of micro-credentials, practicing, helping people to tell stories, celebrating it, peer review, all of these things contribute to us the way that we build habits. You know, I think the other thing, if we're really going to be inclusive, is that we've got to create these environments for everybody. And we've got to spot where people are already doing this and use our learning environments to create and build that confidence. You know, whether it's through mentoring, whether it's through stretch assignments, you know, somebody might feel a little bit nervous, but let's give them an opportunity to grow and change and support them in that environment. And then also, how do we give great feedback that builds people up rather than just says, hey, great job, pat on the back? Because I can't go anywhere with that. And if I didn't feel included, if I didn't feel that I could actually contribute, it sometimes can even feel worthless. And I have to say, you know, as a woman, if someone comes up and says, hey, great job that you've just done there, but I don't know what it is that was great, what I need to keep continuing doing. That doesn't help me. And I can only say that actually sometimes it actually pushes, it makes me feel less included in that environment. So the way we give feedback is so important. So, you know, great that you've been able to share in the chat room about, you know, how we can help people practice skills safely. You know, Peter, you know, you've got that environment going there, and hopefully I've given you some ideas on how else you can do that. But, you know, as Jacky said earlier, we're looking at a remote world often now, and it's unlikely we're going to go back to purely face-to-face. So I have a question for you, and the question is, you know, how can technology help us think through some of those issues? We talked about complexity. We talked about how can we build better habits. You've been talking about safe skills practice and building muscle memory. Love to get your thoughts on how we might use technology in the technology environment more effectively in order to build inclusivity. So I'm just going to go quiet for a moment and just ask that perhaps we can reflect in the chat room. If you haven't had a chance to contribute to the chat room yet, maybe you've got an idea on how technology might help or how it's helped you do things maybe a little bit differently to build habits, build confidence. So Becky, thank you so much. Shy colleagues, introverts actually like the reflection of the chat room. I've heard that over and over again. So I really appreciate that because it just technology gives us all an equal voice. You know, your voice in the group chat right now is as important as our voice sharing our ideas through with you. So really appreciate you kicking us off with that, Becky. How can technology help us be more inclusive in the design of our management? So let's got some great ideas kind of starting to bubble in through it here, and I'll let you skim through them in a similar way to me. So use of actors. I think that is a great example there, you know, creating that opportunity to kind of model different ideas online there. So I really appreciate that. Getting people to use the chat room to overcome their experiences, to share their experiences without the fear of public speaking. I think that is so powerful. I've also seen technology used to help people to capture their stories, whether it's through a blog or whether it's through a video caption. You know, it allows us to capture our story and make our story as valid as anybody else's. We don't have to be in the room. So again, if you'd like to kind of share with the technology. Tony, you talk about Miro board there. It's inclusive, isn't it? It's an inclusive environment where everybody's ideas count. They can all be heard, which is a great, and how we use that in that environment there, I think is really powerful. So thank you for that. The use of polls. Jacky, you talked about a quick aid for getting a quick anonymous view of how people are feeling. We could have used a poll in this situation. I'm personally, Becky, you say you love polls. I personally, in this situation, love chat because I love to hear your real voice and the real nuances in what you're saying. But actually, Becky, I love polls as well because what that allows us to do is to get a collective voice that we can bring for debate. You know, and I think, again, if we want to genuinely get an inclusivity within our programs for people to be connected, I think that's a really important aspect there. So great that you've been able to kind of contribute through a few more ideas there. Dominic, you're telling us here about depends on the environment. Yes, if technology excludes people, then you know, that people have not got access to the right technology, the physical disabilities of being able to use technology. It's so tough. But equally, as Sally, thank you for putting the argument through there as well, it actually creates opportunity and access for people to engage. And if we're thinking about inclusivity, and we're thinking about bringing in groups of people who need to have their courage and their bravery ignited in a way that it never has been before. Maybe technology through the access to opportunity, you know, inclusive opportunity, equal opportunity, regardless of our location or our ability to fit something in with our family lives. I think that's can be so powerful there as well. So really do appreciate all of your thoughts and your views there. Please, again, please keep them coming. I'd like to share with you maybe a couple more that we explore in the report itself. Talked about access, you know, how technology can open opportunities for people who have never had the opportunity, or if they've had even their own schooling environment in the past has been disrupted. Creating good instructionally designed experiences that harness technology can allow people to reset and come with a fresh eye and equal eye to those new kind of opportunities, and particularly for hidden talent. I think that's so important. I think the issue around community is also important. Technology, how we can work together right now. We're from all over the country, maybe all over Europe, the globe. But we are now connecting, we're sharing ideas, we are working together, even in this short environment. Now imagine that's an environment over a 12-month period where we can go to each other and we can say, we learnt that model, I've tried it, what do you think? Share our stories in a safe environment of the learning program that gives us the courage to then go back into our work and speak out with our new voice. So I think the way that we use technology for community is absolutely critical. I think the way that we use technology for practice is also really important as well. And, you know, I think, Tony, you mentioned earlier about practice in the chat room there. You know, how do we go away? How do we use technology to reflect? How can we use it to kind of get feedback on our intention of how to tackle an issue back into the workplace? So it's that overlap between the community and practice that technology can open that up. And some of the tools that we have in there as well help us to, keep a logbook. If we want to create a safe environment within our work environment, let's keep an online log. It's okay to experiment. Let's talk about our experiments and what did we learn when they went well, when they didn't go well, and how can we change and adapt. So keeping a log of our practice helps to build our courage, our confidence, and say, you know what, even in this environment for learning new skills, complex skills, it's okay for us to not know all of the answers and just to try something out. And then the third area that I think technology might be able to help us with with this whole inclusivity is the role of data. If those of you who have got assets, incredible assets that you're making available to everyone in your organization, who's using them? Where are those hidden managers who are already investing in themselves, in their own time, in their own way, in these complex skills? Let's use the data available to us to lift up, to celebrate, to open up new opportunities. So I think the way that we use our data, I think, can be so powerful as well. So, thank you so much for kind of sharing some of your thoughts around technology. What I wanted to do, if we're thinking about complexity, we're thinking about how do we build new habits in these complex skills which have a knock-on effect in culture, the way that we do that and the way that we build confidence in the design of our programs can make them more inclusive and build courage and confidence for those who really need that environment. But, we talked about some of the practical things you can do. You can look at the book and all of those kinds of things, download the report, but it matters. And Lee, I have to hand over to you because your story has so inspired me because of the way that you've come through your management journey. It's mattered and it makes sense. And Lee, can I just hand over to you to kind of just make this more real?
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, thank you. And it's been an incredible journey, really, which still continues. I'm Lee Gifford, and I'm the Apprentice lead at Lincolnshire Community Health Services, NHS Trust. First of all, management, I wasn't looking for it. Management kind of fell upon me. The true story is I was asked as a favour from somebody else within our organisation whether I would look after an MVQ centre for a few months. Those few months have now been 4 years. And during that journey, I recognised that I had fear of management, is probably a good way of describing it. When I got given the opportunity to begin with of almost babysitting this MVQ centre as it was then, I had a fear that I wouldn't be good enough. I had a fear that people around me would judge me. What if I wasn't successful? And I remember at the time there was an open university course called the Chartered Management Apprenticeship degree. And I thought, what a great time now to get involved and do a degree. Firstly, because I started to recognise those same fears that I was having about management I probably carried with me into that role, because I didn't do my degree after my A-levels, because I was fearful of that success and whether I would be successful, or whether I'd be able to do that or not. So the first leap of faith was jumping onto that degree programme with the Open University. I am a product of our own, and I'm quite fortunate that I work in an organisation that does put a lot of value on talent and recognising talent, but I didn't know that at the time. This was something that later down the line I became to know and understand more of. In fact, some of the comments that you've been mentioning there in the chat actually kind of resonate a lot with me, certainly around things like behaviours and attitudes. So I started off on my journey in 2017 when the Apprenticeships first became available, both on my course and started on my journey. And on my first year, I thought I did a fantastic job. I thought it was brilliant. And I thought, I'm getting the success. I'm making money for our organisation, which is great, certainly under the conditions where the NHS were. I thought I was doing a great job. And then during the process of my programme, one of the areas to develop was reflecting on yourself. So that's the first thing that I did. I actually reflected on me by doing a 360. The results that came out were alarming for me, really, because where I thought I was doing a fantastic job, what I hadn't recognised was the people that was with me at that time I hadn't brought along with me. I wasn't recognising inclusivity. I wasn't recognising the value of people around me. And it was at that point that I realised, almost a eureka moment, that to be successful, to have a high-performing team around me, I need to know the team around me. I need to know what they can bring to the team, regardless of any protective characteristic they may have. It's about those as individuals and what skills and behaviours they had. And I think, you know, the OU programme itself was fantastic. For me personally, it was a journey of exploration of self on several occasions. And as I've gone through this same journey, I think where I feel I have been able to create a high-performing team around me is because I'm always asking for feedback. And I don't mean like somebody who's done a job and is glory hunting. I mean genuinely being human, being authentic, and actually asking my team, what did you think about what we did? How do you feel that went? And I think that's where I've been able to put some of the learning that I've got from my experience of getting into management into practice by bringing my team along with me and asking them, you know, isn't it something I could carry out, but I actually get my team to be part of that. I get them involved in actually asking the questions of what type of other team member would fit into the team that we're starting to create. You know, the words value, inclusion, you know, really important to me. And I'm just conscious of my time I have here. I just want to echo a couple of inspirational people that certainly had an impact on my learning. One's Brené Brown, which I'm sure you may have come across on Netflix. And she said, be in the arena. If you're going to be a manager in today's world, be in the arena. You know, if you're going to sit on the fence, you know, you're not going to get the full experience of what management is like in today's world. Be in that arena. And Steve Jobs said, you know, trust that eventually those dots will join up. And no matter what hardships you've had and whatever's led you to that point in time, you can join the dots backwards and actually, you know, realise without those hurdles, without those experiences that I've seen some of you mentioning there in the chat, you wouldn't be the manager or be the future manager of today. I think Laura hit the nail on the head about be brave. Management today is about being brave, and that's certainly something else I've learned from my experiences. And it's hard work. Management isn't just a word. Leadership's not just a word. It takes hard work every day. Every day that you're with your team is an opportunity to make your team better, you feel better, and to get the results that you want. It's, you know, that's my story so far. I'm still continually learning, and I'm always up for learning. And I think that, you know, once you get, one of the other important stories is no one really gets you ready for success either. And I think it's important to know that, success, you know, you have your own ideas of success, but the important thing is to keep learning and bring that team along with you on that journey. I'm going to hand back over to you, Laura.
Well, thank you, Lee, for that. It's just been so inspirational kind of talking to you about the journey that you've had and the role of formal education, as well as combined with grit, combined with opportunity, combined with the belief of other managers that are around you. That all of those, when those come together, really kind of create an opportunity for the future. And I guess that's what we've been talking about today, is how do we create opportunities for incredible managers to be able to surface and deliver what we need in business today as individuals, as teams, and for organizations. So we've shared 3 very different kind of stories with you, but we want to kind of dedicate the remainder of this session to really tackling some of the gritty questions that have come in prior to this event and through the conversations that we've had today. So Becky, thanks for the opportunity, and back to you.
Great, thank you so much, Laura. So many useful insights there from you and Jacky, and such an inspirational story from Lee, so thank you so much. And thanks to those in the group chat contributing as well. Yeah, we've got just over 10 minutes for some questions. So if you do have a question for Jacky, Lee or Laura, please pop it in the group chat now. Just to kick things off, I really want to home in on the kind of benefits that we get from an inclusive approach to management development. So Laura, just starting with you, can you talk through some of the potential knock-on sort of effects that we see from this inclusivity?
Well, I think, let me just tell you a really, really tiny short story. I had a fantastic opportunity to interview a guy called Ahmed for this new report that we're doing. Ahmed's based in the Middle East. He is a great salesperson, a great sales manager, but he hadn't got those management skills, the nuanced, complex skills of connecting and engaging. And he went on actually the OU program over a number of months. And he experienced a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about, being introduced to models, being encouraged to work in groups and connectivity, but it was all virtually, and it was a global environment that he was working in. But that experience allowed him to look at his current situation through completely different eyes, not just about how do I manage my current team differently and better, but how does my experience of learning remotely, being connected with a diverse global audience who I don't know and I've never met, if I can learn and grow as a personally as a manager, how can I convey that experience in with my team? And he brought his team to working remotely way before COVID, and he's been working on inclusive programs for women in the Middle East as well, because of the experience that he had through learning in this new and fresh way. He was exposed to this. It worked. It released new life, new ideas, new energy, new creativity for him, just through the experience of learning, which then had a knock-on effect in the way that, as we've seen in the chat, impacts culture. So that's just an example. There's plenty more, but that hopefully that helps answer that question, Becky.
That's great. Thanks, Laura. And yeah, Ahmed's story is so inspirational, and it will be in the report that we will send out to you, so you can see that in more detail in a few weeks when we get that ready. Jacky, I wanted to come to you next to talk about the sort of challenges of accidental managers. I mean, it's probably a problem every organisation faces, really. Can I come to you on this, the kind of challenges we're facing and how we combat these?
Yeah, I mean, I think, can you hear me better, by the way? There was a lot of comments that they couldn't hear me well when I was speaking. It's better now. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably all experience being managed by an accidental manager, and often it can take place at when someone's reached quite a senior level, particularly because they love carrots by cat, because they've been promoted up to a certain level because of technical ability, but then suddenly find themselves in quite a senior management position. I know I've experienced someone coming in above me with who themselves had never really managed before, and often they can be rewarded for doing a very, very good job in a particular technical area, but the only way to reward them is to promote them into a managerial post. And it can be quite disastrous for organisations. It can be certainly very costly. You start to you can look at sort of quite tangible effects like loss of, sick leave, people leaving the organisation, but what I think is probably a greater impact is the sort of loss of what you call a commitment. So that going above and beyond, and people will get very disillusioned very quickly. So yes, it's a major issue for organisations. It costs them a lot of money because people leave. Or they lose productivity over time, and then typically it takes some time to manage that situation as well. So.
And in terms of kind of dealing with that situation, is what would you kind of advise for that?
Well, yeah, I think it's hard, because when somebody's in a position like that, automatically they are. A, they're quite senior, and B, they themselves will probably feel quite under threat from being in a managerial position. So I think you have to put the right support around them. They need mentoring. They probably will need a training program along the lines that Leah's outlined, because it provides the foundation to develop in the way that they need to. So I think it's I think it's hard for them, and it's hard for the people around them, and it's important to put the right support in place.
Thanks, Jacky. I wanted to go back to a comment that Tony made earlier in the group chat. It was the kind of culture conversation that was coming through. And he said, the challenge I see is the authenticity of the leader. Very often it is do as I say, not as I do, which fosters exclusion rather than inclusion. I'm just wondering how we can combat this behaviour from leaders. It seems like such a difficult thing to tackle. Laura, can I put this one to you to kick things off?
Yeah, thanks. No, seriously, no, it's a brilliant question, because actually how we behave as leaders does have such a knock-on effect. And I think sometimes it's because we've had to bluff it out. If we've been recruited, the accidental manager that Jacky's just mentioned, and suddenly we're in a role and we're expected to be as good a manager as we were salesperson or project person or nurse or doctor. And, we've been used to a certain level of expertise and acknowledgement of that expertise. And so when suddenly we're exposed, deeply exposed, to be able to give ourselves permission, Lee, you talked about self-awareness, to be able to change is so important. So, for me, that's why I think we've been emphasizing that in the way that we design interventions. Can we design interventions that help people build their courage, build their bravery, equip them with new models, not negate their expertise in other areas, but help them to apply it in a safe environment, in a safe community. Because unless we do that, unless we can create safety for those who are causing havoc because they can't let anyone see that they're vulnerable, I don't think we're ever gonna address this issue. That's just a thought.
Thanks,
can I just
Laura.
come in there? I mean, can I come in there a second? I think,
of course,
it's important to look at the culture across a team. I mean, if you find often people mirror behaviour that they see above them as well. So I think you having a shared, agreed culture, particularly within a senior leadership team, which is modelling the behaviour that you want to see from your managers, is really critical, because if they see the top person behaving like that, it gives lots of people license to behave in a similar way.
Absolutely. Lee, did you have anything to add there based on your own experiences?
Yeah, I mean, thank you. The only thing I would add, and when I say about learning about self, is if we can recognise what we don't want to be, then that, we look at other tools that are around us. And one of the things that sprung to mind for me was situational leadership, around, there is an element where we have to be directive as managers in this world. We have to be directive because that's the right approach to take. But there are other ways that we can manage. But I stick with the theme of that, every opportunity as a manager is a learning opportunity. And if we're starting to see these behaviours and we feel as the employees of that manager, that's not how we would be, then it's kind of the managers of the future. You need to be considering how would you be in that situation? Bit of reflection. What would you do in that situation?
Thank you, Lee. Question from Peter that's just come in. So many want bite-sized interventions. Can we have some thoughts on how we can make learning more sustainable? Laura, can I put that one to you first?
Yeah, I think basically one of the challenges we have, because people say they want bite size, so we give them lots and lots and lots and lots of bites, great big libraries of bites, and not knowing where to start. So hopefully some of the things that we've been talking about today and we'll be talking about in the report, it's about how do we scaffold that experience? How do we recognize that sometimes when someone is a novice in this complex skills thinking, but is hungry, they need a little bit more structure. It can still be bite-sized, but it has to have meaning. We have to give bite-sized bite-sized models, and then how do I apply that in my new work environment? You know, bite-sized checklists, but how does that fit in an integrated way into the sorts of tasks that I'm doing? So to look at it first from the individual, the tasks that the manager has to be doing. So if we want to make it sustainable, let's involve our managers in the design. Let's say, what do you need to do, so that we can start to kind of scaffold the right worked examples, the right case studies, and the right tools to help us explore those new skills in a way that makes sense in our complex world of work. So I think that's one of the challenges that we, if we can tackle that, then bite the size is great, and tech allows us to open up those opportunities. But it's got to be meaningful in the complex tasks that we're being asked to do as managers.
Yeah,
Thanks, Laura.
I think bite size is often a symptom of a wider problem, which is quick solutions. And as Lee's illustrated, you get most benefit from a longer term sustainable intervention.
Yeah.
So I think if bite size is integrated as part of a wider talent development strategy, it's fine. But it's not a means to an end. It's not a quick fix for organisations. And you need the right strategy. What are we going to need? What skills do we want to develop? You know, going back to basics, really, training needs analysis. How do you really articulate what you as an organisation want to do? What's your succession plan? How are you going to develop the skills? And in that environment, you might find that some short sessions for some people are appropriate, but apprenticeships might be absolutely an appropriate vehicle for some people. They take longer, but as Lee's a great example of somebody that really has benefited. And when we talk about the length of an apprenticeship, you know, and I'm saying it's long in training terms, but if you look at the speed at which Lee has developed as a manager, that's actually fast in development terms, very fast.
Thanks, Jacky. That's all the questions we've got time for, unfortunately. That went very quickly. Don't forget that you will get a copy of the recording sent to you so you can look over the session in your own time. The management readiness report will also be sent out to you as soon as it's ready in the next few weeks, so do keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us, for contributing on the group chat, and thank you so much to Laura, Jacky and Lee for getting involved and sharing your insights. We hope you found the session useful, and have a lovely rest of your day.
Thanks, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.